It's Thursday, and you know what that means. That means it's time to ignite the dynamite. The day after the dynamite. And I'm Will Washington, and this is Day After Dynamite. Dad, if you will, as most people have affectionately referred to it as. Very intentional. But I'm not alone here. I am joined by one of my favorite people on the face of the internet. He has made a big name for himself on TikTok, a platform that I have completely struggled to understand. And he is a part of the Fightful family. He is the one and only Professor Nick Harrison.
Will, it is an honor and privilege to be on with you on the 1-year anniversary of your announcement of being announced as a host with Fightful. So this is a big deal, man.
It is. I know. 1 year. Like 1 year ago yesterday was my last episode of RBR, and then I came over to Fightful the next day. I mean, so the funny thing is it's the 1 year of the announcement, but it had been like cooking for weeks. And so it's one of those things where I'm 1 year removed from it all being out there, and 1 year removed from just all of the change that's happened in the last year, and me and Reg and Phil getting to do what we've done with Grapsity and how much fun we've had. Speaking of which, by the way, it's the off Thursday, which means that if you're subscribed to Fightful Select, tune in later today in about 2 hours from right now, because we've got a brand new edition of Ask Grapsity. If you've got any questions for me, Phil, or Reg, make sure to get those in. We'll go ahead and answer those on Ask Grapsity in just here in a little bit. But this is Day After Dynamite. Nick, I'm so glad to have you here because, I don't know, I have just felt like content-wise, I don't know how you come up with half the stuff you come up with, and how you think of the things you think of in relation to wrestling. Because part of, I feel like, the game of TikTok and pro wrestling, and I told X3 this too, but it's got to be finding ways to relate not just you, but I'll say outside content to professional wrestling. And when you seem to marry the three things, you have a hit. And I don't know how you managed to come up with these things, but it's genius to me. I love it.
I have a brain that is full of like pop culture, wrestling, and just jumbled mess that has been sitting there for, well, I'm 42 years old now, so about 35, 40 years of my life where all of this stuff is like just come together as an amalgam. And I just vomit it out on social media, and it just seems that people tend to love it. So if they keep loving it, I'm gonna keep doing it. It's just a lot of fun, man, and I enjoy doing it. So I just love professional wrestling. So to be able to pour into it in that way is just really cool. So I love it.
And it seems like professional wrestling loves you, so that's always been a great thing. It's like when you show the love to the industry and then it shows it back. There's nothing like that.
It's the best thing in the world, man, for real.
It is. It is. I truly feel that myself, having been at this as long as I've been at it. But folks, I want to make sure that you guys participate in this show, because I know everybody's got some thoughts, and you'll get to leave your thoughts here. Make sure, for one, leave us a thumbs up if you're right here on this video, right there on YouTube. It's right there, bottom left corner. Just do it. Give us the thumbs up, and then that's it. We really need those. But also, the one thing that helps support us is your super chats, your humper chats. If you go to youtube.com during the show, youtube.com/Fightful, while you're watching, leave us a super chat. Those help really support what we do at Fightful. They help support Day After Dynamite. They help support Grapsity. And again, youtube.com/Fightful. While you're watching, just leave us that super chat. Or humper chats. Humper chats, we like a little bit more, because the humper chats, YouTube takes a gigantic cut of the humper chats, of the super chats. Just a fact. Humper chats, we get a little bit more of it. So if you want to send us humper chats, that's at humperchats.com. That's our Streamlabs solution. And the cool thing about humper chats is you don't have to wait for the show to start to send those. You can send those at any point. Make sure you're addressing what show they're to, because we only have like one humper chat account. And so sometimes we don't know if it's going to Day After Dynamite, or if it's going to Alex and Kate, or if it's going to Sean and Denise. I don't know, but I'll usually assume if it came during this show or if it says for dad, it's for this show. But definitely send those in, humperchats.com, and we'll go ahead and bring those up on the screen. We'll read them. We got a super chat from Orion Ben 666 that says, the dad and professor of pro wrestling, let's Dynamite. Let's do it.
Thank you for recognizing me as the professor of professional wrestling and not Serena Deeb. Serena, we see what you're doing. That's gimmick infringement, and I will not stand for it. It's right here above my head. The real professor of professional wrestling. How dare you, Serena? I'm watching you.
Hey, you got to get yourself a flag now because she's got a flag. What do you?
I'm gonna get a flag. I'm done, Will. Done.
Get you a flag
for your boy. That's it. We making it happen. All Jim Duggan up in here. Get a flag and just thumbs up.
That's what I want to see. I want to see you waving the flag, thumbs up. Do it entirely Jim Duggan style. And let's see. I'm pulling up the Humper Chats right now. I want to make sure before we dive into things that I have accurately pulled everything I was supposed to pull. So we're going to log in with my account. But the thing I wanted to talk about, for those of you subscribed to Fightful Select, you may have seen that I had a report this week about people being absent from this week's Dynamite. Because we knew going into it, Tony Khan had tweeted out that for those who had missed the email, going to AEW, if you were a resident of Florida, was optional this week. And we weren't sure when he said that who was going to take him up on that. I had talked to a number of wrestlers about this, and then got some word from AEW about who was planned for the show and who essentially wasn't going to be there. And so I reported yesterday that Tony Khan had given basically the go-ahead for Swerve Strickland was supposed to be on the show. There was going to be some follow-up to his title loss and some more stuff with the Acclaim. That looks like it's been pushed to next week. And also Samoa Joe was going to have some involvement here. This was a very Ring of Honor heavy episode. Things revolved around Philadelphia. I don't know what angle he was going to be involved in, but I do know that Samoa Joe was supposed to have a presence on this show. He was given the go-ahead to stay at home. Matt Sydal stayed home as well. Just a number of guys, pretty much. The funny thing is, I guess funny is the wrong word. Interesting thing is that a lot of guys who trained at the Performance Center for a long time took up residence in Orlando. It just made sense, right? Like if you were in NXT and you were going to be at the Performance Center, you wanted to be filming things along those lines, moving to Orlando makes sense, right? And so a lot of guys are in that Orlando area, and they're kind of in the path of Ian. And there's also a lot of residents in Tampa as well. So, that was basically the story there. And like I said, we reported that on FightfulSelect.com yesterday that there was a number of people who were missing from that Florida area and weren't able to be there.
That's understandable.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
That was the right move by Tony Khan to say, you don't have to come into TV this week because I know what's about to hit landfall in Florida. Mm-hmm. So just make sure you got your family taken care of, that you're taken care of, that everything is safe, and we'll be able to do something a little bit later. So I totally get that.
Yeah, so a couple of wrestlers I had talked to had said to me that, and I thought this was an interesting point. It wasn't so much that they were worried about getting out, because all the flying out would have been on Tuesday. But it was getting home today that they would have been worried about more than anything else. And whether or not their stuff was all still going to be there. So that was really what a lot of it was about. It was basically, staying with the family, keeping them safe, all of that. But then more than anything else, like making sure you can get home. They didn't want to be stranded elsewhere. And so that played a really big part in some of the decisions made yesterday, because there were a couple of Orlando talents. No, if you guys know this, Britt Baker does live in Orlando, but Britt Baker did make it to the show. She was just completely able to pull that off, and it was really up to talent as far as whether or not they could be there and whether or not they were able to make it for that show. Right. So that was an interesting deal. I also got a really interesting stat about the show. So, as you all know, AEW isn't so used to running a very promo heavy show. It's very wrestling based.
Right.
But I noticed this week while watching that both Raw and Dynamite. I tweeted this last night, but I felt like Raw this week felt. I felt this during the show, but I wasn't going to say it because I knew I was going to bring out Tribalist. But I felt like Raw felt very Dynamite-esque. And when I say that, I mean like the way Raw was flowing in a match-to-match format where really like the only non-match related segment was the opening segment, and that still went into a match. But otherwise, it was all just kind of match and then, typical WWE promo stuff, but then like match. And like after a match would end, they'd go backstage and say, and now we're going to get to this match. And I thought that is nothing like Monday Night Raw. That's not like Monday Night Raw at all. That's how Dynamite very much presents itself because that's how Dynamite's been since the beginning. It has the ability to present itself in a match type way. And so that was just my observation on Monday. I was like, Raw feels very Dynamite-esque this week, which I've heard from... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I can totally see that. And you're right. Like Raw, even in the very immediate time over the past couple of weeks, has leaned more towards the wrestling portion of everything. But now Dynamite this past Wednesday felt very promo heavy, which is understandable again because you told a lot of your talent because they were in Florida. You can stay home, so there might not have been a lot of people there to participate in a lot of stuff and make some of those matches because I think there were only 3 matches on Dynamite this week.
Dynamite had because it went in with I think 4 booked and then it ended up with 5 by the end.
Yeah,
but no 6 because there was the Ricky Starks match. So
I didn't even think about the Ricky Starks match because it was like a minute and a half. So it's like the stuff was real quick, but it's like it focused more on like the promos and the behind the scenes stuff and the stuff between which I enjoyed it a lot. Like the stuff between MJF and Wheeler Yuta was great. So you had some really good like non in-ring stuff that was going on Dynamite this week that kind of carried over, and which is something that people have asked for. With AEW was more story driven, like promo stuff. They've asked for that, so they got it this week, and it was actually quite entertaining, sports entertaining. Really.
Yes. So I have a stat here, and I wish this was a stat I pulled out myself, but I was actually given this stat by AEW. But it was a very interesting stat. It's been a really long time since AEW Dynamite has had 3 promo segments. Usually, it's 2 at most. A lot of times, there's just 1. Last week, I believe there was only 1. But this show had 3 promo segments. It had the opening promo segment with the Jericho celebration. It had the MJF and Wheeler Yuta segment. It had the Saraya segment. 3 in-ring promo segments. The last time that happened was the December 9th, 2020 edition of AEW Dynamite. That was a show that featured 3 segments. And I pulled off the top of my head. Once I was told December 9th, I was like, what happened on December 9th? It would have been a week after Winter is Coming. And so that would have been the week after Kenny won the title. So, of course, Kenny had a promo with Don Callis. But then that also would have been the week after Sting debuted. So Sting and Cody had a promo. And then also there was the Inner Circle Ultimatum segment. And so that was the last time that AEW had a show that had 3 promo segments in a single episode. And it's been a long time since they've done anything along those lines.
Right.
But here we were.
It's needed. I mean, I think I thoroughly enjoyed Dynamite this week.
Really?
In all honesty, I did. I thought it was entertaining. I thought the in-ring stuff was really good. I thought they were building up on matches that were coming down the road, building up animosity between, certain entities. The stuff with Daniel Garcia and Chris Jericho is still going on, and I think that's really entertaining. And like I said, the stuff with Wheeler Yuta and MJF, I liked a lot, and I am interested to see where it goes going forward with all the things that have been introduced over the past couple of weeks.
Well, we're about to dive into all of that. Before we get there, though, we have our normal day after Dynamite run-in. As soon as he clicks the add to stream button, there he goes.
Washington!
Hi, Jeremy Lambert. The guy who's getting married this weekend. I can't believe this.
Allegedly.
Allegedly? What, is she not going to show up?
You never know, Will. You never know. Until, plans can change, pal. That's why you always got to bring your gear. I don't know until the bell rings and the I-do's are said.
True. Are you nervous, though? Are you excited? What are you looking at? So it's Thursday right now. So we're now right around the corner. You've got 3 days left.
I'm not nervous at all. I'm excited for it to be here. I'm very stressed. I'm stressed of the build up to it. I'm just ready to get through the week. Once we get through the week, once it's here on Saturday night, Sunday, I'll be good. I'll be good on that. Nick, nice to meet you. By the way, Will Washington, the forbidden door of wrestling media here, always introducing everybody. Great work on the Fightful TikTok, and I
thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
I'm not on the TikTok, but I check out the videos and always try to support everything everybody tries to do at Fightful. So nice to meet you, and just wanted to say thanks for all you do here at Fightful.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that you call it the TikTok, as the old folks say.
Yeah. I'm not hip at all.
The TikToks, yes. But I appreciate that, man. I really enjoy being a part of the Fightful family. I'm looking forward to doing more stuff with Fightful. I've been looking forward to doing Day After Dynamite, and it's funny. This is the first time I ever met Will in person was at an AEW show in New Orleans. So this is kind of like synergy. With the two of us. So I'm very excited to be a part of the family and looking forward to more bigger and better things with Fightful.
Well, we appreciate it. Yeah, everything you do at Fightful, everything Will Washington does at Fightful, he is the absolute best. And I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to say thank you guys. Thank you guys.
Dude, I'm missing your wedding right this weekend, and you're just being all kind to me, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with it.
Should I be mean? Should I be mean, Will? Thanks for not coming. I can't yell too loud.
No, honestly though, because I really want to be there, and and a lot of people are going to be there. Like, speaking Fightful family,
Allegedly.
this is a Fightful family reunion you're going to have here at your wedding. I think that's really cool, and I don't know.
I'm honored that so many people are actually showing up from Fightful and the wrestling media, because I don't think I'm very important. I don't think anybody actually likes me, and so the fact that people are actually coming here, I'm like, oh, are you guys sure this is how you want to spend your weekend? Coming to Ohio? You positive this is what you want to do? No, it's I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. I'm looking forward to getting married.
And we're doing a podcast the day of your wedding, because Denise and I still have to do After the Week on Sunday morning. So we still have
bunch of people. Joel's doing his podcast the day. I think I'm just gonna run in on all of these podcasts the same day. I'm like 2 hours away from getting married. What's going on, guys?
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm gonna end up doing.
Yes.
But no, I wanted to say thank you to you guys. I legitimately don't think anybody likes me. This is very imposter syndrome, what they call it.
Oh, yeah. No, dude, are you kidding me? King of imposter syndrome over here. So just ask Hannah as far as how I deal with imposter syndrome, because she's seen it in person. But thank you, Jeremy, for stopping by.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Guys, have a great show. Nick, I heard you like Dynamite, so I'm very interested to hear your takes on the show from last night, because I know it's been a lot of takes all over the place from last night.
I know.
I thought it was middle of the road, so I'm interested to hear what you got to say about that. And Will, always love your takes on Dynamite. Bye, everybody. See you guys maybe next week. Maybe I'll show up next week. We'll see. Bye, everyone.
The marrying man.
Yeah, I know. Getting married. Jeremy Lambert. No matter what, they're going to be the Lamberts to me. That's still going to be a thing. I don't care. What is a Lambert? Lambert.
We don't know.
So, he is
The
Lambert.
Lamberts.
Yeah. So, anyway, I'll say this. My overall thoughts on Dynamite. First off, I'm going to preview something. I mentioned this on Twitter, but I haven't gotten to talk about this on a podcast yet. I did an experimental podcast this week. It's been recorded. There are some audio mishaps with it, so I've got to do some editing. There were audio mishaps I wasn't aware was happening. Speaking of which, Nick, if I start skipping and like my voice gets squirrely and all that, please let me know because my guest didn't know to let me know that, so we recorded a whole bunch and like 20 minutes of it's unusable. So, but we recorded about an hour and a half, and I talked with a friend who I've known this friend 20 years, and she was basically interested in checking out some pro wrestling. She is not a pro wrestling fan. She's not actively into pro wrestling. She didn't know much of anything other than the only thing she mentioned to me was she saw a commercial for Grand Slam, and she was like, isn't that the guy who's married to one of the Bellas? And that was all she had. She recognized Bryan Danielson, but other than that, which, by the way, that was already an interesting take to me because a lot of people don't really see Bryan Danielson as like a mainstream wrestler because he's such a pure professional wrestler. But the fact that she was like, oh, yeah, I know that guy. I've seen him on the Bella Show was what she said because she was like, back in her, she was like, I used to watch that stuff. She was like, that was the only wrestling exposure she had was watching Total Divas, Total Bellas in the midst of watching like the Kardashians. But anyway. So I was like, okay, I'm going to task you with something. I'm going to give you my logins, and I want you to watch a week's worth of pro wrestling. And then I'm going to interview you about it because I really want to know what somebody who doesn't watch this stuff, who's not in the weeds like us, who hasn't almost developed, 30-something years of opinions and things along those lines. I really wanted to know what she thought of watching pro wrestling with fresh eyes. And it was really interesting to get her point of view. I'm not going to spoil a whole lot because it's a really good podcast. But I got some really interesting views. There were things like she didn't like the Acclaimed. But part of the reason she didn't like the Acclaimed was that she didn't get any of it. And I thought, like, the stuff she was picking up on was a lot of the stuff where people will say like, oh, nobody gets Orange Cassidy. Why don't they explain this? Why is he like this? She completely got Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy was her favorite act that she saw. But like the Acclaimed was an act where she's like, why are these guys coming out with Scissor Me Daddy on their shirts? And I thought, that's interesting because my brain loves the Acclaimed. I love all things Acclaimed, but I've also been watching them since the beginning. And she's watching this like, I don't get any of this. I don't get the act. Why is this old guy with them? Like, I don't understand them. But she was like, Swerve and Keith. I love Swerve and Keith. She's like, I know Fabulous, and she was like, that's the music I grew up on, so love Fabulous. So obviously, Swerve and Keith are a big deal because they've got Fabulous with them. I don't know these other guys, and also, I don't get it. None of it makes sense. Why is everybody doing a scissor motion? And I thought, wow, I hadn't even put that together, that I'm so in this bubble that somebody seeing this for the first time doesn't get it at all. She also knew that Jericho had lost the tournament and was like, why is he getting a shot at, like, why does he get a championship match on Dynamite the next week? What happened in between that? I was like, oh, you have to watch Rampage for that. I guess without Rampage, it wouldn't make any sense. Oh my God, it's Sean Ross
FABOLOSR-S.
There we go. It's Sean Ross Sapp. What's up, Sean?
I'm about to go to the Bengals game. Just wanted to say hi. Hold on. Here's how I'll do it. Hi, Nick. Hi, Will.
What up, Sean?
Hey, Sean.
Check out all the great.
Go out there and beat those Dolphins, man.
Let's
get that win.
Trying to. I'm trying to.
Go get it, baby.
Everybody check out the great work that Nick is doing on TikTok at Fightful.com. And check out Ask Grapsody on Fightful Select. We got to get some of those subscriptions back. Some of y'all left us. You're mad at us. Bring them back, Will.
Yeah.
Bring them back, Will.
FightfulSelect.com. We're going to answer some great questions. Any questions you've got, we'll answer them. That's what we do. So, But anyway, yeah, and that might end up being a Fightful Select podcast. At least we recorded it under the impression it would be. So definitely check that out. We had a great chat, and I'm actually the cool thing that we came out of it with, though, and this was the part I was most pleased with, because we talked about a lot of things, but at the end, she said, "I am hooked, and I want to keep watching." And I thought, and so like I might text her now, probably tomorrow, just to let some time pass. But I want to know what she thought of this week's Dynamite, because again, wrestling fans in the weeds are very like, oh, that was like worst episode of Dynamite, because when things aren't like excellent, when things aren't perfect, it's either really great or really bad, but nothing's ever like in the middle. If there's anything you dislike on an episode of Dynamite, it's like, this is the worst show of all time.
Yeah, it's like I'm the kind of person who will always try to find the good stuff in whatever I watch and enjoy. Yeah. And, I try to dig into it as much as I can, because I was one of those, grassroots fans from back in the day who, would appreciate the little things. And there were some little things in Dynamite last night that I was like, oh, well, that's fun. Okay, I can get into that. So I'm this is gonna be a fun one to dig into.
Yes.
Because there are going to be a bunch of people. I might lose some followers on Twitter on this one. Well, he don't know what he's talking about. Get out of here. You're the worst. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So I want to address a couple of super chats and a humper chat. We got one from Tom Talks Rubbish. It says, Jeremy to set up media area at wedding. That's probably the best thing you could do, considering when you invite a bunch of podcasters to one place, probably want to give them the ability to still podcast. But I think it's a little too late for that. And Graham B says SRS1. I like that.
That's brilliant.
Yes. We got to get him like a shirt with the KRS logo. That'd be great.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. Let's see. We got this one here is from Rerun. It says, for Dad. That's us. It says, I love how fresh AEW talent gets over so organically with the crowd. Wardlow, Garcia, Wheeler, The Acclaimed, and now you see it coming with Hater. It says, and Willow is going to be there once she gets the opportunity. Nothing feels forced. Thank you, Rerun. I appreciate that. And that's a great observation, because I feel that's true as well. That especially with AEW fans, they tend to have an attachment to people that kind of grew in front of their eyes. And that's why there's such an attachment to AEW original talent, and why guys can get over the way they have gotten over. Speaking of which, the show opened with a lot of purple. We had the Jericho Championship celebration. Chris Jericho in the ring with the Jericho Appreciation Society, and also Luigi Primo, who is just in the back throwing pizza throughout the promo. And of course, we had pizza boxes behind them, so I don't think he needed a huge explanation as to why Luigi Primo's there. It's a celebration. At celebrations, you have pizza. It's pretty much been that way your entire life. And so that's... Look, you had in the classroom, when it was pizza day, you knew it was, when you had pizza parties, that's what it was. Pizza parties. You know when something has gone right, you need a pizza party. So that made perfect sense to me.
Well, to me, I looked at it from a completely different perspective. Like, if you've ever seen people talking about working like a hard job, like dudes who work as stockers or something like that, and the CEOs have all of this money and they come in and talk about how successful everything has been. So to reward you, instead of giving you a raise, instead of giving you something monetary that can help your family, we're going to give you a pizza party. So that's kind of his thing with like Daniel Garcia. It's like, you do what I tell you to do. I own you. I run you, and all you're getting is slices of pizza. So that's what you're going to take. So it's like, Jericho.
That's a great observation. I didn't even think of that. That's great.
Jericho is just a rude, mean boss who's I won a world championship. By the way, the Ocho is reserved for ESPN 8. I will never call him the Ocho. That is for Pepper and Cotton from Dodgeball. I will never call him the Ocho. That is ESPN 8, and that will always be ESPN 8. But that's what I saw, is that Jericho is just being the rude boss who's rewarding all of his hardworking guys with pizza. This is what you're getting, but you're not getting any Philadelphia. You want some pizza? Well, you're not gonna get any.
Yeah, and honestly, I have to say, I was not prepared for what this segment was about to be, but I genuinely liked it, almost from top to bottom. I thought that that Matt Menard and Angelo Parker are hilarious. I think that those two are guys that I feel like, I don't know. It was kind of a diamond in the rough for me. I wasn't sure how funny I would find them. Like, people used to tell me about Everrise, and I hadn't seen a whole lot of them, so I wasn't sure how funny I'd find them. But I genuinely think Matt Menard, especially, is just a funny guy. I think he is genuinely great at what he does.
Menard plays like he's off that bean, man. He plays coked out. So you're gonna get a little taste. It's like Macho Man Light with him. He's like, it's a little soup, a little taste. You wanted a taste? You're not gonna get a taste. That dude, you can find the humor in Menard and Parker and what they're able to do because they play comic heel so well. So you can like the whole thing. I'm with you, man. That whole Jericho Appreciation Society segment from top to bottom, from the purple suits, which took me back to my youth of watching Bad Boy and like the whole hip hop videos where everybody's wearing like shiny suits. We ain't going nowhere. I loved it. Every single piece of that segment, like for real.
Yeah, I'm glad you did because, like I said, I enjoyed it a lot. And I also, so everybody got their speaking part. They let Anna Jay get to tell off the fans, which I think she's getting better at. You can tell she's getting a little more comfortable each time she does. And like at the end of the day, that's how you get people better on the microphone, is you give them time. Right. And so you had Anna Jay doing her thing. And then, of course, Chris Jericho addresses everybody and finally addresses Daniel Garcia. And I thought everything from here on was Daniel Garcia's basically sink or swim moment, and I thought he swam. Mm-hmm. I thought that Jericho gives him the opportunity to basically put all this behind us and declare himself a sports entertainer, put this wrestler stuff to bed, ignore all these fans who are chanting, "You're a wrestler," which I still think is the funniest chant of all time because like you could literally chant that at anybody and it's accurate. But but so the fact that they're just like, honestly, I want that to be the chant like for generic wrestlers in like video games and things like that, where you can set custom chants to people, but they have to be they can't truly be accurate. Like if you ever played like the old WWF Attitude games back in the day, and they would just chant player one. No, I just want "You're a wrestler. You're a wrestler." Like, just give me that.
But I tell you, it shows how well the stuff with the Jericho Appreciation Society is like getting to the fans and how much they're understanding it, because it's like it's a whole play on the difference between sports entertainer and professional wrestler. And for him to be in a faction that is based on we're all sports entertainers, for the fans to chant at him, "You're a wrestler," that's them saying you don't belong with these people. You're not like them. You're not a sports entertainer. You're a wrestler. What are you doing? Like,
yeah, I love it. I think it's worked for him. But then Brian hitting the ring here and basically telling Daniel Garcia that before Brian, sorry, missed the point here. Chris Jericho gave Daniel Garcia a gift. He gifted him the purple Kangol. And let me tell you,
now I tell you, it was the bucket hat, man.
Bucket hat. Sorry, that's right. The old one was a Kangol. Sorry, you're right. The bucket hat. You're right.
Which, if it was a Kangol, he probably would have felt better.
He probably would have felt better because he was wearing the Kangol before. Yeah, you're right. It was the bucket hat. It's the purple bucket hat.
Yeah.
And but that helped illustrate almost the silliness here, and really helped put the look on Daniel Garcia's face. And he throws it to the ground. Then out comes Brian. Brian basically talks up Garcia, tells him it doesn't matter what you do. You're a man. You make your decision. Garcia finally starts telling off the Jericho Appreciation Society, but he never sides against Jericho. That moment still hasn't happened. But he does issue a challenge to Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara versus himself and Bryan Danielson. Where's that going? Ooh, I don't know. Because again, he still never declared himself against the Jericho Appreciation Society, but he did issue the challenge for a match. But that's for a later date. Until then, we had Bryan Danielson tell everybody that he actually was given permission by Tony Khan to have a match right here, right now, which hasn't happened in AEW. That's not an AEW thing. That's a very Monday Night Raw thing. That's a very SmackDown thing. We don't see that in AEW where wrestlers say, let's have the match and let's do it right now. We've seen like open challenges and things like that, but we haven't necessarily just seen the, well, I'm out here in my gear, let's go right now, get a referee. And they did it. They got us a referee. They cleared the ring very quickly. They like cut to a shot of the commentators at the table, and then when we cut back, everything's gone. And
can I just say, first of all, they did go show the commentators at the table, and William Regal was one of those commentators. And we had a little piece at the beginning of the match where the sound guy in the back decided to play a little bit of Bryan Danielson's theme song as the match was just now getting started, and everybody just stops and like, all right, and wait, he's off his nuts. The sound man is off his nuts, and anytime William Regal gets on the mic at the commentary table, I am rolling laughing. The man in the mask, oh, you tasty little piece. I would roll you up, would I? It's just amazing, man. God bless that man. And William Regal, give him his flowers as soon as you possibly can, because that man is a treasure. He is an absolute treasure.
He called him a Rice Krispie treat. I loved Regal and Excalibur here so much. That's my favorite little combination. Man in the mask, you Rice Krispie treat. It's great stuff. It's so great. And yeah, the funny thing about the Bryan music stuff was I got what they were trying to do, and that they were kind of trying to do the like Monday Night Raw thing, because I don't know if it was a mistake as much as it was mistimed, where they cut to the shot of the commentators and then they were supposed to cut back to the shot, and it was going to be playing Bryan's music as if this match is getting started like a match would. Because I know some people saying that that Bryan. They were like, oh, that spoiled the match. But like, no, because that was still the intro version of his music. Because little observational fact, when Bryan comes to the ring, it's Born for Greatness with lyrics. When he wins matches, there's no lyrics on the song. Right. So, but it still had the lyrics in it when it was playing at the beginning. I don't think that was a mistake of them playing the closing music. So, and yes, Caden, I can read your super chat. Sorry that I missed it last week because I was in a rush getting out. If you want to paste that in the chat now, I'll go ahead and read your super chat, Caden. But yeah, so somebody in the chat noted that they don't really like when matches are just made on the spot, on the fly. I'll say this about that. They at least attempted to address little pieces of it. Like, no matter what, Bryan had addressed the fact that he was granted time to have a match. So at least in a formatting sense, Bryan was supposed to get a match here. So we can say that. The time I hate it most is mostly with main events. I cannot stand when a main event is made the same night, because I always have to ask the question, if this hadn't transpired in the ring, what was the main event of this show going to be from a logical standpoint? Was the show just going to go off 30 minutes early? Like, what was the plan here? And like, what kind of matchmaker doesn't have a main event for his shows planned? So,
was the match that goes on before that, was that supposed to be the main event?
Right.
If it was, then you look at that match and you're like, is this really a main event match? Like, what exactly? What is going on? So I see that. So I like it when they do that. When they do the, I want to, we're gonna do this match right here, right now. Get a referee out here, because it to me lends to drama and suspense as to, okay, this is happening now. Especially if you have some sort of actual build up to it. Mm-hmm. Like, there hasn't been an actual build up to this deal with Bryan Danielson and the folks with the Jericho Appreciation Society and Daniel Garcia all being a part of it. And Menard was even talking to Daniel Garcia, talking about, I'm sick of your crap, and this all led into what happened. So I can kind of, as long as there is purpose behind it. If it's just a match being made to be a match, then it's like, I don't know if I'm really with this right now. But as long as there's something leading into it that makes it make sense, Will. As long as it makes sense, then I can totally understand.
Yeah, and that's what we got here. We got Bryan Danielson taking on Matt Menard. It was. I'll put it above a squash in that it wasn't a match in which a whole lot happened. We did see Matt Menard and Angelo Parker basically take advantage of Bryan and take advantage of the ref in some situations. And this led to Claudio Castagnoli literally coming out and carrying Angelo Parker out of the arena. And that led to it being just a straight one-on-one match. I am curious, where did they go? But that's okay. It's pro wrestling. I don't care that much. But Bryan Danielson beats Matt Menard, taps him out to the LaBelle lock after hitting him with the Busaiku knee. Shortish match. It went about 8 minutes. And not much to it. It was more so we got to see Bryan in action again, get a win after losing the title match to Jon Moxley last week. We are clearly leading to Bryan Danielson challenging for the Ring of Honor Championship.
Right.
A thing Jericho noted, by the way, that he's better than all of Ring of Honor's past, and he's going to prove it. And luckily, a lot
makes you think, was that what Joe was going to be doing if he was at Dynamite this week? Because if Joe is a past champion, so if Joe was there, was he what he was scheduled to do this week on TV?
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious because of the fact that, Jericho made the declaration at the end that he's coming for all of the Ring of Honor champions. And it starts with Bandido tonight, former champion. I know Gresham fans are suddenly breathing a sigh of relief that he got to avoid being a fodder for Chris Jericho here. But, you look at the roster and how many of them are former Ring of Honor champions and how many of them was Chris Jericho going to go through? My first thought was, CM Punk's not here, but that could have been something.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine? One, Punk. Two, Adam Cole. Can you imagine if that's something that happens down the line? Adam Cole, Chris Jericho. Can you imagine?
I know, right? Like there actually is a lot they can do with this. That's because AEW owns so much of Ring of Honor's library. So much of Ring of Honor's library, in fact. One thing that was pointed out on this show, I believe this was the first time, maybe not because I guess Road 2, but the first Dynamite in which we have seen all-in footage on AEW television because that footage belonged to Ring of Honor since the beginning. Right. Even though AEW has owned the name All In pretty much since... Because the name All In was a registered trademark of, I believe, Killing the Business Inc., which belongs to the Young Bucks. And I believe in 2020, and Tony, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the Young Bucks sold the trademark over to Tony. And so Tony has owned All In since 2020, but he hasn't owned the footage until he bought Ring of Honor. And so we got to see some actual All In footage here. Either way, opening segment, top to bottom, I thought Daniel Garcia here was great. I thought that Bryan and Matt Menard had a fairly unremarkable match, but Bryan's my favorite wrestler ever, so I'll never complain about seeing Bryan matches. And I thought everything that needed to get over here got over. It was sports entertainment, but it was sports entertaining, so I'm not going to complain here. Another thing I had no complaints about, and I know people did, I'm not one of them. It was advertised we were going to hear from MJF, but before we got to, Wheeler Yuta came out, and he came out with some fire.
Yeah, I'm still trying to. I'm gonna let you go ahead and handle what you're about to say, but I still can understand why people had issues with Wheeler Yuta and his segment. Like I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. I loved seeing that out of Yuta. I loved it. I love seeing the fire, the personality, him going after MJF because it's building towards something. I loved it. I loved every piece of it.
Well, let's say this. So they're not necessarily scoops, but they are wrestling communications. Dave Linker in the chat. But so I saw a lot of people ragging on Wheeler Yuta on the mic here, and I just disagree. And the reason I disagree here is because I'm not of the belief that everybody needs to be MJF, that everybody needs to be The Rock, that everybody needs to be Roman Reigns, everybody needs to be Paul Heyman, the best mic workers in the world, pretty much. I don't believe everybody needs to be that. Only thing I need for people to be is believable. And I need them to sound like they believe what they're saying. And in that regard, I thought Wheeler Yuta came off like somebody who genuinely dislikes MJF. He came off as somebody who was annoyed last week, who didn't like what Max had to do or say, and is just annoyed when and is just annoyed with MJF's shtick. And the way he came out and was like, what are you going to do? Tell me I sound like paint drying, make fun of the local sports team, do all the typical MJF stuff. I believed all of that from Wheeler Yuta. That just sounded like something he would say. That felt like something he would do. And the crowd got behind him. Now, granted, he's from Philly, but Philly knew that, and they got into it. And I thought that, I saw people kind of, commenting on the voice crack. I see Caden in the chat just commented on the voice crack. But again, passionate people, sometimes their voice cracks. That's okay. Like, I just thought that as long as I believe it, I don't necessarily need somebody to be the best orator. I just need to believe what they're saying. And I thought Wheeler Yuta, to me, this was one of his best mic performances in just the sense of being passionate and believable. And that's it. That's all I needed from him. Hell, I don't think that... Like, it's kind of crazy because that's part of why I've looked at guys who, like the script and environment of WWE. That's a big part of why guys who don't do well with the script, to me, have come off as badly as they've come off in the past, is because it doesn't necessarily, to me, sound like they believe what they're saying or that it's coming from their heart or that they're saying it. Like I said, they don't have to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. Just be believable. That's all I need. And I thought I got that. And he's interrupted by MJF, who does some making fun of Wheeler Yuta a bit and rips on Tony Schiavone, rips on Philadelphia. He talked about the past between Wheeler Yuta and MJF. And those two did have a past. Those two have traveled up and down the indies. There's pictures, there's video. You can see it. And MJF said, you don't want to go toe-to-toe with me on the mic. And Yuta didn't want to. He doesn't care about that. He wants to face him in the ring. I thought it was great. I thought he got the big pop. And I don't know. I liked it. I there wasn't anything I didn't like here.
Look, man, that dude said, if you don't want to fight me here in the middle of this ring, I will leave you in a puddle of your own blood on Broad Street. Bad things happen in Philadelphia. Why?
Big pop from that.
How is that a bad line? Like,
yeah.
What do y'all want? You touched on it, man. Do you want everybody to be The Rock? You want everybody to be MJF? You want everybody to just be just absolute gold on the microphone? Everybody's not going to be the best on the mic. But as long as you can draw me in, the business, professional wrestling, getting on the mic is about drawing emotion from the crowd, drawing emotion from the person that's watching, evoking something. As long as you're not saying, I don't care about this person, then, they're actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. I was in it. I was pulled in by Wheeler Yuta. Of course, MJF is going to do MJF. MJF going MJF, baby. Like, that's what he's going to do. But I was truly intrigued. I was pulled in by what Wheeler Yuta was saying and doing because they're building something. You got to allow them to build something, because that is actually going to, I think that's going to be an absolutely fantastic match between the two of those two, because, you know, we know what Wheeler Yuta can do. We know that Wheeler Yuta is talented, and he may not be as good as MJF on the mic, but I enjoyed what he did on Wednesday. So I think that he did his job because I was in it. So me personally, I think he did his job because it pulled me in.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That's where I was with this. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed him. MJF did the chicken shit thing that we love to see, which is that he was going to fight him, but not here. I'm going to do it next week in Washington, D.C., the
he
anniversary
edition. Trademark that. That's one of his moves. You guys want to see me fight him? You want to see me fight him? No. That's now trademark MJF.
Yes. And we got it. We're getting it next week. This is actually the first time we've seen MJF in singles action in an actual match since he was squashed by Wardlow at Double or Nothing. Right. And MJF has only had 6 matches this entire year. 2 of them were losses to Sean Dean.
Shout out to my boy Cap. Sean Dean, what's up?
That's
baby?
right. We were there for one of them.
Yes, we were.
Yep. So, yeah, he had that loss, and he also had the, of course, and then he lost to CM Punk. Yeah, he's lost 4 times this year. Lost to CM Punk, lost to Wardlow, lost twice to Sean Dean, and then his only 2 victories were the one win over CM Punk in Chicago. Some count that as 2. The official record book counts that as 1. And his win over the Casino Ladder match, which he didn't really win. He was just handed the chip by Stokely Hathaway. So he's 2-4 right now. He's due for some wins. I think MJF needs to get some singles wins before winning the title. I don't think he should win the title with a losing record in a company that keeps records and puts them on screen. So therefore, I think if we're going to do this, MJF should probably, between now and I think he wins the title at Full Gear. Now, between now and Full Gear, I would like to see him and I would like to see Max probably get like 3 or 4 wins before winning the title. And we know he's going to win it. But before we got there, we had the title on the line. Not the title on the line. Sorry. We had the champion, though, compete in an eliminator match. Mm-hmm. We're 2 years into eliminator matches, and I still hear constantly from people, what's an eliminator match? I don't know. I feel like they've kind of explained that well enough in that, the concept is that when the champion is in a non-title situation, they're always eliminator matches because it is an opportunity to pin the champion. If you pin the champion, you're automatically number 1 contender. WWE did it with the championship contenders match, which they named theirs like 6 months after AEW started doing eliminator matches. That's the concept. That's it. It's they have them every single time. Champion has a non-title match. It's either that or the champion is constantly defending the title. Right. Those are or I guess just having the non-title match. But I like there's being at least some stakes to a non-title match. And in this case, it is pin the champ, become number 1 contender. It was Jon Moxley versus Juice Robinson. We actually got a video package explaining a little bit of their background. We talked up Jon Moxley being the ace, him being the only 3-time champion, showed off only one of his championship wins. And you're not going to show the second one. No. But that Juice Robinson had Mox's number. Juice Robinson had beaten Jon Moxley previously since he'd been in AEW. He had 2 victories over him, and this was now the first time that we were getting to see Jon Moxley go one-on-one with Juice Robinson inside an AEW ring. Juice Robinson's first time on Dynamite. For a crowd that I felt was very hot in Philadelphia reacting to things, they didn't exactly react all that well to Juice Robinson.
Which was crazy to me, man. Like, I actually dig Juice Robinson. I liked his work in NXT before he, went to Japan and did everything that he did. I think he's a solid performer, and I love his matches against Mox. I was kind of taken aback by the fact that the Philly crowd didn't really react to Juice, but it made me feel as though a lot of them didn't really follow Juice and know him the way that, some do, because not everybody follows that stuff like that, and I can understand it. But I love what AEW does in that regard in bringing in talent that a lot of people may not necessarily see on TV a bunch, like a Juice Robinson, like a Mance Warner, and you put them in there against a guy like Jon Moxley, which is going to be a high-profile match because it's Mox. And you give them that kind of exposure, and you build up those guys, which in turn builds up the business. So I dig it. I like the concept of it. I can understand why there will be those who don't really get into it because they don't follow Juice. They don't know who a Juice Robinson is. But I thought it was a good match, and I felt as though they really performed well on Dynamite this week.
Yeah, and I like the match, but I understood that the crowd not necessarily being into it, and I even got a message from somebody that was like, "Who is Juice Robinson?" And I was like, "Okay, so just a little backstory: he beat Jon Moxley in the G1 in Japan. He's made a career for himself in Japan. I believe he might be a free agent right now." There's conflicting reports on whether or not that's true. He was CJ Parker in NXT. Like, he's been around the block, but I can understand why you may not know who he is. But at the end of the day, he's just here having a match with Jon Moxley.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And now that said, we haven't seen Moxley bleed in a little while, and he bled in this match, which is a Moxley trademark. It's like making up for lost time of not getting to bleed for 9 years in WWE, and then was like, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna do it a lot. Let's see. Chris, by the way, Chris Neenan says, I have a vision of acclaimed foam fingers everywhere in the audience. Why do they not exist already? And how can I make this a reality? I do agree. They should have foam fingers by now, and you should be able to. They should have a little bit bigger of a slit to where you can make sure that 2 foam fingers can connect. Because honestly, I think you should sell them in pairs, right? And then just give one to a friend, and you can be like, let's do it.
Just an excuse to print money.
I know.
I feel like that's something that's going to happen. As a matter of fact, they said next week is National Scissor Day.
Yes.
And they told people to bring their signs, bring their giant scissors. That's when you roll it out, man. Like, you get the foam fingers, you sell them there, and everybody there has got their 2 foam fingers, and everybody in the crowd is scissoring each other. That didn't come out right. I do apologize to everyone for me.
No, that's okay. But hey, that was the thing that my friend absolutely did not get, right? That they're like, what are you guys talking about? Why does your shirt say "scissor me"? But the and Caden had a super chat last week.
I'm sorry. Please continue.
Yeah, Kate. So Caden had said sent it a super chat last week, and I didn't get a chance to read it because I had to speed out. But he says, super chat: Alex, Queen of the Ring, and SP3 saw me cry when Great Muta came out at Grand Slam. I mean, that was a moment. If you got to be there for that, and you were there for that, I know that. But I feel like a lot of people in the crowd, I saw a lot of the reactions were just going nuts, and it's great stuff. I love
it's Muta, man.
Passion. It's Muta.
It's Muta. Come on.
Michael Branson says, first introduction to the professor, and I gotta say, what a glorious beard. Love the Fightful fam, and thanks for all you do, Will. Thank you. I thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you sending the love with the Humper chat. Let's keep going, though, because after the match, there's a little Philadelphia trivia for you. After the match, Jon Moxley is confronted by Hangman Adam Page. They have a face-to-face. They stare each other down because for the first time ever, Hangman Adam Page is going to go one-on-one with Jon Moxley. AEW Dynamite Tuesday. The Tuesday Night War is back, I guess. We're going to see AEW Dynamite on a Tuesday, and in a title match, Hangman Adam Page is going to take on Jon Moxley. First time one-on-one. But that's not the first time they've ever had a match. No. You see, on the 3rd episode of Dynamite, Hangman Adam Page teamed with Kenny Omega to take on the team of Pac and Jon Moxley. Pac and Jon Moxley, of course, not quite seeing eye to eye. And Hangman and Kenny ended up getting the best of them in that match. Where did that match take place? Philadelphia. It took place in the Liacouras Center, this very arena, Philadelphia. It was the first time that those two had a match against each other. The other time that these two faced each other was in the Casino ladder match last year, in which Hangman Adam Page made his triumphant return as the Joker and grabbed the chip to challenge Kenny Omega at Full Gear. There was a brief moment in that match in which Kenny, as a matter of fact, Kenny, now I'm talking about Hangman. Hangman and Jon Moxley got to get physically involved with each other. Hangman, of course, Jon Moxley seemed like he was about to have it won when Hangman's music hit, and Hangman knocked Jon Moxley off the ladder. Seemed like they might have been heading somewhere with that. But that Casino ladder match took place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at the Liacouras Center in this very arena. So the only times that we've seen Hangman and Jon Moxley have any type of physical confrontation, it has been in the very arena that we saw them in last night when we got to see Hangman go face-to-face with Jon Moxley. They had their stare down, but it was almost not to be because they were interrupted by MJF, who said that it doesn't matter what the outcome of these two's match is going to be, because at the end of the day, they're just fighting to see who will lose their world title to MJF when he so decides to cash in his chip. But then he turns around and gets his ass beat by Wheeler Yuta, who is done playing with this man, and they brawl from his skybox down through the crowd. Again, I liked everything involving Wheeler Yuta and MJF here.
Yeah, absolutely. There was some real furniture moving between the two of those boys. And I like to see what they're doing with Wheeler Yuta, giving him this platform to perform against one of the upper echelon guys in AEW and Max. And I just think it's entertaining. And Max is a good foil for Wheeler. You know, you push Wheeler as a pretty solid baby against, the devil himself.
And I think Wheeler got a strong showing too, considering, Wheeler got to go face to face with Jon Moxley and really got to show something against Moxley. I think Wheeler's not going to be a walk in the park for MJF at all. I think Wheeler is probably going to get to look good against Max before Max ultimately takes the victory.
You're having some audio issues, Will.
Oh, there it goes. There's my thing. Let's see. The chat saying it.
Hi, guys. Professor Nick Harrison here. I want to thank you for joining us for Day After Dynamite.
And this is why, like I said, I have a whole podcast that there's a good 20 minutes of that were unusable because nobody told me that was happening. So I appreciate that.
I got you.
But that's why I like the chat too, because the chat said everything that needed to be said there. So either way, I appreciate you, chat, for bringing that to my attention. Now, let's talk about the segment that's got everybody talking. Saraya.
Oh, boy.
Yes. Saraya makes her way to the ring. And great reaction for Saraya. Everybody's happy to see her. You could tell she was nervous. She dropped her famous "I'm back" line. And I thought to start, she wasn't so bad. She even left things a little bit ambiguous. She talked about, that she's broken, but, or what was the line she used? I can't remember exactly what it was.
It's something along those lines. I can't remember the exact thing, but I know what you're talking about.
Yes. So, she, I thought, started well. But I don't think it ended well. And a big part of it was that I felt like this segment took the approach that's what it was. It was she's damaged but not broken. And so that was supposed to lead a little bit of ambiguity in there. Leave it to where you could believe that damaged but not broken says, I can't wrestle now, but that doesn't mean I won't. And so this segment took the approach to the AEW women's division that almost took the approach that it's been like the Divas division was for a long time. And the beef, of course, a lot of people took with that, and I took with that, was that, guys, the problem with the women's division has just been a lack of time and consistency. That's it. Like, we're not necessarily talking about needing a huge makeover of things as much as we just need more of it. And that's kind of it. And so the way she was kind of talking about the Revolution and the way she brought out the women's roster, and I thought that I don't like that kind of stuff. I didn't like it in WWE. I'm one of the few people who hated Stephanie getting the Revolution started and bringing out the 3 teams. I hated that. I thought that you took away a lot of the individuality of these identities that had been working at crafting their own individuality in NXT and all of that. And you were like, actually, we're just going to bring them out and make them teams. I thought that this kind of did a lot of that, where it's like Toni Storm didn't need a reintroduction by Saraya to me. Toni Storm has been consistently on TV in AEW on Dynamite. She has not missed a Dynamite. I believe, and I said this last night, and a few people tried to challenge me on it, but I said I don't believe AEW has had a women's performer, almost period, perform in or have an in-ring segment 8 straight weeks on the show. Toni Storm has. The last 8 straight weeks, she has been in-ring on Dynamite. And somebody was like, well, what about Britt Baker? Britt Baker did not. A lot of times Britt Baker's content was like backstage segments. There was not 8 straight weeks of Britt Baker having in-ring segments on TV throughout her entire run as champion. And people were pointing to Hikaru Shida. I don't believe she had 8 straight weeks at any given point either. Toni Storm has had 8 consistent weeks on TV as AEW women. Or it started before she was champion. Before she was champion, when it was building up to her challenging Toni Storm, or challenging Thunder Rosa. Sorry, got my Storm and Thunder.
Thunderstorm.
Yes, Thunderstorm. When it was just leading to those, to them having the one-on-one match, Toni Storm was on TV consistently. She had the match with Kylan King. They were doing what they needed to do to get her there. But the fact that she has stayed consistently on TV, I've been saying, that's all I want to see. Give me some consistency. Give me Jade Cargill consistently. Give me Toni Storm consistently. That's what I want to see, is just consistency in the show. And I think things are going to work out. I didn't need necessarily Saraya to tell me that things are that bad, because I don't think they are from a content standpoint. I think they are from a consistency standpoint. Yeah. And so I didn't like that. I didn't like Saraya necessarily speaking for Toni Storm when I thought that Toni Storm has already been strong enough. Then out comes Britt Baker. And Britt Baker throws some disses at Saraya.
Bars.
And she had some good lines in there. She is Britt Baker. She is good at what she does. And she talked about Saraya's name and how people don't know if it's Saraya or Saraya. And yeah, that probably should have been put in Excalibur's earpiece last week when she came to the ring. But Saraya, and then she's like, who are you to make fun of names? Because your name rhymes with shit.
Horrible line.
Yeah. Horrible line. Yeah. I was like, oh.
And then Taz with the whoa.
Yeah.
That I can't look. Okay, so check it. My main problem with it is along some of the lines that you were saying. You know, like she brings all of the women out and says, you know, let me tell you about some of these ladies, like Toni Storm. Let me tell you about Toni Storm. You don't need to say anything about Toni Storm. You got Willow Nightingale sitting right there, and Willow Nightingale does not get the credit that she deserves in AEW. Like, she is a solid performer that deserves to be on TV more, and they just don't do it. Where was Jade Cargill in all of this? Where were Jade Cargill and the baddies? Were they not? Maybe they weren't there. Maybe they were scheduled to be there and supposed to be there, and they weren't there. Then that's fine. You got Penelope Ford out there with Britt Baker and her crew. Why is she just there? Like,
well, because I think it was because I was guessing by the way they came out of the tunnels, that was supposed to be the baby faces on one side and the heels on one side. But the problem was Penelope was just one heel who's not normally with this group. So that was the
Yeah.
issue I had here, is that if there was like one more heel there, then I think the point would have been illustrated that this is the heels here and those are the baby faces.
Just seemed a little out of place to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I see where they were trying to go. Like the whole deal with what they're trying to do with Saraya, it feels kind of forced. And don't, like, we have her now. We have to do something with her. So let's do this. And this is how we're gonna do it. And it's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. It's just not working right now. Hopefully they'll retool it and work it out in the next couple of weeks. Is she like the commissioner of the women's division or something? What is this?
And so there were a couple of other things people had problems with, because she did kind of make a match, but it was more so the match was made and she just got to announce it, because she kind of addressed that Tony gave her permission to announce this match, which is it's going to be a lumberjack match. Since we have all these women out here, lumberjack match, let's do it. And it's for the title, which it already was. We knew that. But,
Right. Like, I was like, and it's for the title. Like, wait, when was it not for the title? We knew this already. Like,
we knew that. We had a graphic at the beginning of the show. We knew it was for the championship. Tony Storm versus Serena Deeb. So I like the match, actually. I like Tony Storm versus Serena Deeb. I thought that Serena, I don't know, comes through. And, the funny thing is, again, prefacing a podcast that's going to be out probably next week, but she was actually somebody that stood out to my friend, and I was very surprised by this, that Serena Deeb, of all people, stuck out the way she did. But the other part that had people upset was Saraya mentioning having a boss who listens in Tony Khan, and I noticed that kind of drove people up a wall. Guys, I know it's difficult because we're people who lived through 90s wrestling. We were used to people taking digs and shots, and I know that there's a whole generation of people who just didn't grow up with that stuff. But, like, I genuinely don't... Hold on. Let me see. Okay, cool. Sorry. I was getting a message from Kate. Thank you, Kate. And it just distracted me a little bit because I want to make sure I know what she's saying because this is kind of important. Okay, cool. Thank you, Kate. Anyway.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, so some people felt like... I don't know. People weren't happy with that line, especially like people who kind of fall along tribal lines because, look, even though along internet lines, Tony Khan has developed a little bit of a reputation with some people in the IWC, he's still popular with the AEW fans. The line got a pop, actually. And so that is a thing where it's a very easy thing to say of, hey, Tony Khan is somebody who we like, and the crowd goes, yeah! And that's, like, it's an easy way to pop fans. It worked. I see somebody in the chat says she's just a hypocrite by saying this. Literally thank WWE for everything they did for her a few months ago. I mean, but that's the thing is you can also thank WWE as an organization and still have a problem with, like, Vince. And that's okay. Those two things can go in tandem. We've actually heard that from people. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like anybody's entitled to speak on their own experience. That's her experience. That's how she put it. That's how it's going to happen. She can do that. But at the end of the day, the show, I didn't like the segment. I thought the segment didn't do right by the women's division. I thought it was a little bit of a setback segment. I thought that the places it did right is that it gave the women a lot of time. I'm curious what the quarters look like for this segment. Mm-hmm. And the entirety of the segment, I thought, again, the talent is there. The matches to me are even there.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing we should have been asking for is more of it. I don't think that even like a reset was even necessary here, as much as we just need to see more. And that's kind of it. And I don't even think they need more in the respect of like equal to the men. And the reason I say that is because there's not enough women on the roster. I think when you saw how many people they brought out, it's very clear that if you split it evenly, it's not going to happen. You will have a very disproportionate show.
Yeah.
But we just need to see more and enough of it to really take in and get attached to people. The thing that we can tend to hate is the fact that we'll see somebody that we like and that we could kind of sink our teeth into, and then we don't see him again for 3 or 4 weeks. That's, to me, the problem with the women's division. That's why I've been commending them on Toni Storm. 8 weeks is a lot of time to showcase somebody consistently. There's a lot of men they don't do that with. And so the fact that we've seen Toni Storm that consistently is a good thing. But
I thought it was a good match.
Yeah, I thought it was a good match. I liked Serena and Toni Storm, and like I'm starting to see that Toni Storm is really able to develop chemistry with a lot of people. I liked that they did the near fall with Storm Zero. That I thought that was it, and it wasn't. Serena kicked out. They made Serena look strong. And yeah, I thought the finish looked good. She then hits that super pile driver, looked amazing.
That
1, 2, 3.
pile driver looked great, man. Like I love the build that they've been doing with Serena Deeb, making her a viable contender for the women's championship over the past couple of weeks and months, and really just putting a shine on Serena. She deserves it because she's a heck of a talent. And I thought that was a solid match. I liked the finish. If anything, they paid a little bit too much attention to the women outside the ring and not enough attention to like what was going on in the ring during the match. Like that could have been a little bit different, but other than that, I thought the match was cool.
Yeah. Well, Nick, this is where I have to throw you to the wolves now. Because a little incident happened last night. So after this match, I had to make a quick drive and to go pick up my daughter from her dance class. It's around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
I end up getting a flat tire. My tire completely blows out because somebody took the access cover for the water access cover, so not the sewer cover because those would have been bigger, but the little water access cover from the street, and just turned it upside down in the middle of the street. So the sharp side is just facing upward, and I ran over that. I saw it like with a millisecond to go. I swerve out of the way, run over it. Anyway, so bust out my tire, damages my wheel. I said all that to say that I'm getting a phone call right now from my body shop who's taking a look at that. I didn't even see what happened with Ricky Starks, so I'm going to leave you to the audience to discuss this for a moment while I answer this phone call.
You do your thing, brother. I got you.
Thank you, Nick.
No problem, Will. So, of course, day after Dynamite, ladies and gentlemen, Professor Nick Harrison, Will Washington is on the phone. Big Willie right here. So the Ricky Starks match, against Eli. I want to make sure I get his name correct. I got it in my notes right here. Eli Eason. Very quick. The entrance for Ricky Starks was probably a little bit longer than the actual match itself. But this is all leading up to Ricky getting more screen time, people really enjoying Ricky Starks and what he's able to do so much, and building him into a star. Because I, for one, have been a proponent of putting the jetpack on Ricky Starks. Make him one of your top guys. Put him into the championship picture. I feel like Ricky Starks should contend for the TNT championship. I would love to see a match between he and Wardlow, excuse me. I think Ricky is a talent, a fantastic talent, and he got to go against a local talent and show what he could do in real quick time and just go out there and do his thing. And on top of that, we've seen what Ricky can do. You know, you saw the lights out match at Grand Slam between he and Powerhouse Hobbs, which I thought was just a magnificent match. And I'm glad that he and Will got that shine, that spotlight. So I'm happy for Ricky. I'm excited to see what they do with him going forward. And just for real, that stuff is so cool to me. I love the lighting that they've done with his entrance now. If you follow me on social media and you followed me on TikTok for the past 2 years, you know that one of the things that I'm really known for is entrances. And I've done Ricky Stark's entrance before. He was a big fan of it. He retweeted it. He talked about it. I actually went back and looked at that the other day because it was just funny to me that he recognized the nuances of some of the stuff that he did during his entrance with the kissing of the hands and all that stuff. But it just goes into the ambiance and the just the cool factor of Ricky Starks. So, I mean, it wasn't a match to call home to your mom about. Wasn't really made to be that. It was just there to get him out there, put the beating on somebody, celebrate his victory, and sharing the adulation from the fans, which he deserves because he did a fantastic job. Day after Dynamite, Fightful.com, the Fightful YouTube page. Hey, by the way, while I have time and while Will is doing his thing, I still don't know which way to point. That right there. So while Will is doing his thing, and here he comes right back.
I am back.
You're just in time because I was just about to talk about the Fightful TikTok page and how people should go and follow. We got great stuff going on, some great interviews from SRS and some great clips of some older stuff and some original content from me. And I'm sure we're going to build on it. We're getting close to 3,500 followers. It has grown and grown and grown over the past couple of weeks, and I'm excited to be a part of it. We talked about the Ricky Starks match, and like I said, it's not really something to call home to your mom about. He took on a local talent and squashed it. That's it.
I hate that I missed it because I was really upset because this was supposed to be a 5-minute trip up the road. I could have made it back. Like literally, my daughter's dance class is like right up the street. I could have made it back in time. I left right at the end of the women's match, and I was like, okay, I'll be back through this commercial break. And then instead, I ended up having to deal with all of this. It ended up taking about 15 minutes to get my car back home, which when you're driving 2 minutes away, that's obviously an issue. And by the way, I was kind enough to put that access cover back so that it didn't happen to the next person because
this guy.
Yeah. And somebody even was initially annoyed with me because they saw me in the road and they're like, hey, get out the road. And I'm like, hey, I just saved your tire, dude.
Chill out, fella.
Yeah, chill out. I did see there was one thing we didn't talk about. I guess we did kind of talk about it. There was a backstage segment with the Acclaimed, and they declared next week National Scissoring Day, and then they were interrupted by Keith Lee because the reason we were given for Swerve's absence was that Swerve is fuming about this loss, and he's going to take some time to recover from this. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like we're going to run this back a third time because there was controversy, right? Billy Gunn did interfere, and so therefore, they deserve a rematch. Swerve and Keith Lee do.
But the end of the segment where Billy goes, "Hey, tell Swerve I got 2 words for him: scissor me."
Yeah.
They are running with this, and I'm all go ahead and do your thing. Wait until the wheels fall off because it has absolutely taken off and people enjoy it.
I wonder if they're going to run it next week because next week's an interesting week. So next week we got the Dynamite anniversary on Wednesday from Washington D.C., the very city where the first episode of Dynamite took place. And not the same arena because that was Capital One Arena the first time, and this is the arena where the Mystics play. But we will be seeing a live Rampage the Friday after, and I bet you that's where the rematch takes place. Or not on the Rampage, but then they're doing Battle of the Belts immediately after, and it's just going to air that way. Battle of the Belts is actually airing Friday night after Rampage, and it's going to be a 2-hour Rampage, but the second hour is Battle of the Belts. I have concerns about that because of the fact that my DVR tends to miss Battle of the Belts because the recordings aren't classified as Dynamite or Rampage.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that they are smart enough to still keep it as Rampage on the DVR and just call it Battle of the Belts, so that way it records properly. Because they are smart enough to do that with things like Road 2 and stuff. Or not Road 2, the countdown specials that they do before pay-per-views. Those are listed as just AEW Dynamite. And so that way people's DVRs catch it and we get to record it. I hope they're smart enough to do that with this Battle of the Belts special. And yes. And as far as asking, do I have a DVR still? I mean, kinda. The service I use is DirecTV Stream, and so yeah, I can record programming on DirecTV Stream, but I can pull it up on my desktop, I can pull it up on my phone, I can pull it up anywhere, and it's just all shows that are basically saved. And the cool thing is they save. I believe they took the limit off, so the earliest show I have, I've got Dynamite's going back to our New Orleans episode. That one is still in my DirecTV Stream account, so I like it. A couple more super chats before we get to the main event and get to ratings. But Kate says Professor needs to do Swerve's entrance with Will's remix.
I do, because I did his when he left WWE. I did his indie entrance to Can't Nobody by Shaka Khan. And I did it as my transition from leaving the classroom and going into an administrator. So it started with me in the classroom that I did all my entrances in and moved to the school that I was at now. And I need to do another Swerve entrance that possibly moves me from where I was before to where I am now, which is in South Louisiana. I'm actually living an hour away from New Orleans now. So the next time you guys coming out to New Orleans,
yeah, you do have to do it with my changed version of the entrance. This.
Whose house?
That one. So I no matter what, I'm glad I get to own that there. But
there you go.
And I guess I just gave it up for anybody because I've seen people try to make edits of it on YouTube of trying to put together their own version, but don't quite have the Who's House right. I just gave it to you. So there you go. That's fairly clean audio. Orion Ben 666 says expert opinion. Ricky's Grand Slam pre-entrance.
Oh God! You have to be absolute. The best part was him standing right there in front of where he was on the screen, and it being like a silhouette of himself or his shadow that was right in front of it. It was seamless, man. It was so cool, and I thought it was pure genius. And I love and I sat there and said it as I was watching it with my wife. I was like, I love when Ricky does this, when he does the little pre-entrance to his entrance with the little videos right before it. It's all chef's kiss, man. It's always fantastic. Shout out to Ricky Starks, a New Orleans boy. Shout out to Ricky Starks.
Yep. That was the first taste we got of how he would be as a babyface. But here in the main event, for the AEW. Nope, doesn't have anything to do with AEW. It's actually for the Ring of Honor World Championship. It's a habit that I do on the show. Chris Jericho defended the title against the former champion who never got his rematch, Bandido.
Will, your audio.
Ah!
He'll be back in just a second, folks. Thank you for all of your comments. We appreciate that. Remember, stay tuned to Fightful for more from Will Washington. This guy right here.
Only ever seems to do it on the show. Anyway, I was talking about the former champion, Bandido, never got his rematch against Chris Jericho, Ring of Honor title on the line. Yes. And this match was incredible. Look, okay. I love Bandido. I've seen Bandido live a million times. I was there. I got to see him face Jonathan Gresham for the interim. For the Undisputed Championship.
Your audio.
No, for real. You're kidding me. This.
I'm
Time.
not.
Ah! Okay, that's happened one too many times for my liking.
It's all right. Things happen, but we fix it. We get back to it. Hope you guys are having a great day here and here.
Sorry, guys.
It's
I
all
don't
right.
know what's causing that this time because it's usually a RAM issue, but we should be good. I don't know how I sound now. Do I sound okay?
Yeah, you sound great now.
Okay. We're just going to hope we make it through this now. We'll close out everything. Bandido challenged Chris Jericho. I've seen Bandido do what he does best. I've seen it live. Nobody gets a crowd into them like Bandido does. And then Chris Jericho. So the funny thing to me about Chris Jericho, and we had a big debate on Grapsity about this last week, was that Chris Jericho is doing the sports entertainer thing. Storyline-wise, he's trying to destroy Ring of Honor and what Ring of Honor has always stood for. But at the end of the day, the reason this works is because Chris Jericho is a great wrestler. I was telling somebody in AEW about this yesterday. We were talking about the match itself while it was happening. And they were just over the moon about the match. Mm-hmm. And I had said, the funny thing is, there's not a period in Chris Jericho's entire career that he wouldn't have fit in what Ring of Honor used to be. Mm-hmm. And that he wouldn't have at some point been a great Ring of Honor champion. Look, you can feel how you feel about Chris Jericho as a person. That's whatever you feel. But as an in-ring performer, I can never take it away from the guy. He's in his 50s. He's still got it. And he and Bandido, of course, Chris Jericho and Bandido. Look, Chris Jericho has made a career out of being able to work with luchador type wrestlers. Mm-hmm. And I thought he just did a phenomenal job here. I thought he made Bandido look like $1 million. There were multiple times where the crowd was buying the finishes. This was just an awesome, awesome main event match. Easily the best match on the show. One of the best matches Jericho's had in a while. What did you think of the match, Nick Harrison?
I feel the same way. I thought the match was fantastic. One thing that I'll give to the notion of Chris Jericho being the ROH World Champion and with him going back against like the old ROH World Champions, especially if they're guys that you haven't really seen on AEW before, is that he's really given a lot of guys shine. Like he's giving them, it's AEW once again giving people that their audience or wrestling audiences in general may not know a lot about, giving them an opportunity to get introduced to these guys, to show you what they can really do, and also giving them a platform against some of the bigger stars in AEW to really get some notoriety and for people to really see who they are. So Chris Jericho being the ROH champion to some may not be the most ideal thing because they don't really associate 2022 Chris Jericho with what Ring of Honor I actually stands for. But the fact that they put the title on him right now is going to give a lot of guys some visibility that they wouldn't have previously. And Bandido was one of those guys. Bandido, as they talked about during the show, as even Chris Jericho himself said, one of the best wrestlers in the world. And that is 100% true. Bandido, when he's on, is one of the best in the business. And he's going to put on a show. And these two really had an amazing match. And it was fantastic to see. And it just goes to show you at least in some aspects, what kind of dedication Tony Khan and AEW really have towards ROH and building up the Ring of Honor talent. Because we're seeing a lot of them get shine on the show. And I thought it was a great match, and just the concept of why they're putting it together to me is really cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I had fun with the match, and I had fun with. I'm having fun with the idea of Chris Jericho wanting to run through past Ring of Honor people, because I agree with what you said there. I think that in a sense, it's going to take Chris Jericho, who's still very much a well-known mainstream name, and essentially give him the expose Ring of Honor's identity to people by having Chris Jericho run through them. I get the strategy here, and I think it's going to work. And then after it was over, Chris Jericho said he's going to destroy everything about Ring of Honor, including Ring of Honor announcers and ring announcers. And then poor Bobby Cruz, my boss over on Women's Wrestling Army, took the Judas effect, and Chris Jericho celebrates to end the show as your Ring of Honor World Champion. This was Dynamite. I didn't hate the show. I think that a segment that people hated a lot, and I get why they hated it because I didn't like it either. I think they're weighing that against the entire show, especially because it took up half an hour of it. But that, I don't think, brings the entire show down. I actually liked the opening segment. I liked Wheeler Yuta and MJF, the kind of sports entertainment-y stuff we saw. And I also thought that the matches were good. And so, I don't know. This isn't even in like the top 15 episodes this year, but this is also a show that people have fairly high standards for, so I get it. But because they have such high standards for it, a show that doesn't hit is like kind of end of the world for a lot of people. The ratings are in. The show did 990,000. This was their first time not in the top 5 in a long time. It was actually in number 9, but every show that beat it was, it says 8 of the top spots were Weather Channel coverage. And so we know what was going on here. It was it was Hurricane Ian. Yeah, we know what was going on. So this isn't one of those shows you can really do too much about. I'm looking for exactly what all the 7 were. Oh, I'm sorry. And then number 8 was Tucker Carlson. But the so the top 7 were all Weather Channel. And what was interesting too, because my brother and I share our DirecTV Stream account, and it's always on the last channel that whichever of us was watching when you go open the account. Every time I opened it, it was on the Weather Channel. And my brother lives in Florida, but he lives in Miami. So I think he was tracking it to just kind of like see what's going on.
Right.
And they're saying Tucker was also just hurricane footage. Okay. So yeah, this is clearly what was happening here. As a matter of fact, when you remove all of the news stuff, Dynamite was still number 1. And then same as usual, Real Housewives, Beverly Hills was right behind it. So it is the week that it is.
And people are going to pin it on the sports entertainment stuff, but and I'm going to get killed for saying this. Even your professional wrestling shows like AEW need a little bit of sports entertainment to it, because at the end of the day, it's a TV show. And they have bosses that they have to appease. You know, they if you don't get ratings, if people don't watch your show, you're gonna get canceled. You're gonna get pulled off of the air. You're gonna get moved to another network. It's a TV show. It's like football. People love football. You watch football. At the end of the day, is a television show. It's a TV show. Mm-hmm. So they have to put the bells and whistles on it for people to act the people who wouldn't necessarily watch it on a regular basis to come in and watch it. You know, if you're AEW, some of this stuff needs to be a part of it to make it a more entertaining, television entity.
I'll say this though, because they're not necessarily at risk of getting canceled. The show's actually doing really well.
Yeah.
And I talk with Warner guys all the time. Another Fightful Select story that came out was, thank you, Sean, for the credit. You didn't have to, but that I did note, or I did get the information that they were really pleased with MJF and really pleased with MJF's presence on the show. Mm-hmm. I did let MJF know that, and that was what I meant when he was talking about it on Ariel Helwani, when he was like, when he said that, I have heard that. And while he was kind of doing a little bit of a lap on that one. So yeah, that's that's that. This is Day After Dynamite. Folks, I want you to stay with us, please, because we've got Ask Rhapsody coming up here in a little bit, about 15 minutes. I got to go pick up my son from school, as I always do on Thursdays, and then I'm going to rush my way back. We're going to do this show, and then I have to take him to parkour class. My Thursdays are busy. And so definitely stick around for Ask Rhapsody that's coming up in a little about 15 minutes. So Nick Harrison, what do you want to plug? Let the world know where you can be found.
Well, of course, as you can see down here, you can see me on social media at Mr. Professor 318. That's on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Also, you can find it if you search it on Facebook. You'll be able to find it as well. On Thursdays on ESPN Radio New Orleans, you can catch me on One A Bet with the Professor Nick Harrison, where we talk about the best bets in professional sports. We're going to talk about professional wrestling betting at some point, which is a ridiculous notion, but it's actually a thing that happens. So we're going to bring it up on the show eventually, and you can also catch that on SoundCloud after they post the shows. The podcast is coming up soon. As you can see, I got the setup now. It doesn't sound like I'm on this because I'm not on this. There's a microphone behind the camera that I've been using for all of this stuff, and so that's coming up pretty soon as well. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be something about professional wrestling, and you're probably going to like it. So make sure you check that out too, and that'll be coming up real soon. Thank you, Will, for having me on. I appreciate it, my man, and we must do this again sometime because
absolutely. You're welcome back. You are welcome back anytime. Folks, this has been Day After Dynamite for September 29th, 2022. We're wrapping up September here. We're going to be in the best month of the year, October, because that's when my birthday is. Until then, we'll see you next time. Have a great day. Peace.